Hare Rama Share Vardhan. Krishna Balaram Hare Hare Nityananda Gauranga Govinda Madhava Radha
Today we're reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 9, Chapter 2, Text number 25. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
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 So please repeat. Vivishante Sutoramba.
Vivishante
Gani Netro Chadarmika.
Sutoramba.
Karandano Maharaja.
Maharaja.
Tasya Siddhatmajomika.
Siddhatmajomika.
Vivimshate Sutoramba.
Vivimshate Sutoramba.
Gani Netro Chadarmika.
Ani netrosya dharmika.
Karandamo Maharaja.
Karandamo Maharaja.
Tasya Siddhatmajomika.
Tasya Siddhatmajomika.
Vivimshate Sutoramba.
Vivimshate Sutoramba.
Gani Netro Chadarmika.
Ani netrosya dharmika.
Karandamo Maharaja.
Karandamo Maharaja.
Tasya Siddhatmajomika.
Tasya Siddhatmajomika.
Vivimshate Sutoramba.
Vivimshate Sutoramba.
Ani netrosya dharmika.
Ani netrosya dharmika.
Karandamo Maharaja.
Karandamo Maharaja.
Tasya Siddhatmajo Nripa.
Tasya Siddhatmajo Nripa.
Vivimshate Sutoramba.
Vivimshate Sutoramba.
Kani netrosya dharmika.
Kani netrosya dharmika.
Karandamo Maharaja.
Karandamo Maharaja.
Tasya Siddhatmajo Nripa.
Tasya Siddhatmajo Nripa. Vivimshate Sutoramba.
Vivimshate Sutoramba.
Kani netrosya dharmika.
Kani netrosya dharmika.
Karandamo Maharaja.
Karandamo Maharaja.
Tasya Siddhatmajo Nripa.
Tasya Siddhatmajo Nripa.
Ladies. Vivimsate Sutoramba.
Vivimshate Sutoramba. Kani netrosya dharmika. Karandamo Maharaja. Tasya Siddhatmajo Nripa.
Vivimshate Sutoramba.
Vivimshate Sutoramba. Kani netrosya dharmika. Karandamo Maharaja. Tasya Siddhatmajo Nripa.
Word for word. Vivimshate.
Vivimshate.
From Vivimshati.
From
Vivimshate.
Sutta.
Sutta.
The sun.
The sun.
Ramba.
Ramba.
Named Ramba.
Named Ramba.
Kaninetra.
Kaninetra.
Named Kaninetra.
Named Kaninetra.
Asya.
Asya.
Of Ramba.
Ramba.
Dharmika.
Dharmika.
Very religious.
Very religious.
Karandama.
Karandama.
Named Karandama.
Named
Karandama.
Maharaja.
Maharaja.
O king.
O
O
king.
king.
Tasya.
Tasya.
Of him.
Of
him.
Kaninetra.
Kani netrosya.
Kaninetra.
Asi.
Asi.
Was.
Was.
Atmaja.
Atmaja.
The sun.
The
The
sun.
sun.
Nripa.
Kripa.
O king.
O king.
Translation by His Divine Grace from A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada.
Jai.
The son of Vivimshati was Ramba. whose son was the great and religious king Kaninetra. O king, the son of Kaninetra was King Karandama. So there's about 10 verses with no purport, so I'm just going to read through all of them. From Karandama came a son named Avikshit, and from Avikshit a son named Maruta, who was the emperor. The great mystic Samvarta, the son of Angira, engaged Maruta in performing a sacrifice. The sacrificial paraphernalia of King Maruta was extremely beautiful, for everything was made of gold. Indeed, no other sacrifice could compare to his. In that sacrifice, King Indra became intoxicated by drinking a large quantity of somarasa. The Brahmanas received ample contributions, and therefore they were satisfied. For that sacrifice, the various demigods who control the winds offered foodstuffs. And the Vasudevs were members of the assembly. So there's a small purport here. Because of the yagya performed... Because of the yagya performed by Maruta, everyone was pleased, especially the Brahmanas and Kshatriyas. Brahmanas are interested in receiving contributions as priests, and Kshatriyas are interested in drinking. All of them, therefore, were satisfied with their different engagements. Next verse. Maruta's son was Dhamma. Dhamma's son was Rajyavardhana. Rajyavardhana's son was Sudriti, and his son was Nara. It's not on this, it's yes. The son of Nara was Kevala, and his son was Dunduman, whose son was Vegavan. Vegavan's son was Buddha, and Buddha's son was Trinabandhu, who became the king of his death. Thank you. The best of the Apsaras, the highly qualified girl named Alambusa, accepted the similarly qualified Trinabandhu as her husband. She gave birth to a few sons and a daughter known as Ilavila. After the great saint Vishrava, the master of mystic yoga, received absolute knowledge from his father, he begot in the womb of Ilavila the greatly celebrated son known as Kuvera, the giver of money. Trinabandhu had 3 sons, namely Vishala, Sunyabandhu, and Dhumraketu. Among these 3, Vishala created a dynasty and constructed a palace called Vaishali. The son of Vishala was known as Hemachandra. His son was Dhumraksha, and his son was Samyama, whose sons were Devaja and Krishashva. The son of Krishashva was Somadatta, who performed Ashwamedha sacrifices, and thus satisfied the Supreme Personality of Godhead Vishnu. By worshipping the Supreme Lord, he achieved the most exalted post, a residence on the planet to which great mystic yogis are elevated. The son of Somadatta was Sumati, whose son was Janmejaya. All these kings, appearing in the dynasty of Vishala, properly maintained the celebrated position of King Trinabandhu. Thus end the Bhaktivedanta purports of the 9th canto, 2nd chapter of the Srimad Bhagavatam, entitled The Dynasties of the Sons of Mani. Om Jnanatirandasya Gananjana Chalakaya Chakshuram Militam Jena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Shtapitam Jena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamaya Adati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Manikamalam Shri Guru Vaishnavam Shri Rupam Sakajatam Sahagana Raghunatam Vidam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Vahijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Param Sagana Radha Shri Vishwabhavisha Hare Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dina Bandhu Janapati Bhumishra Bhumika
Hare Hare Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare.
So, I'm just going to talk about Ramacharya today, since it's his disappearance day. And I'm not going to try to present a complete chronological biography with dates and order and things, but I just picked out a few events in his life that demonstrate some of his qualities, some of his Vaishnava qualities that he has, that we can take lessons from. So this is skipping quite far ahead into his life, but he became very close with the devotee called Yamunacharya, who was the acharya of this Sri Sampradaya at the time, and they had a very close relationship. But in Sri Rangam, one time Yamunacharya was there, and Ramanujacharya and another devotee called Mahapurna were in another place, and they heard that Yamunacharya was very sick. The spiritual master was very sick, so they hurried quickly. They travelled to Sri Rangam to go and see Yamunacharya before he left this world. But when they got there, they found that there were so many devotees there gathered, all lamenting because they had arrived too late and Yamunacharya had already left his body. So Yamunacharya and Mahapurna, they went to see the body of Yamunacharya and to pay their last respects. And Ramanujacharya noticed something very peculiar on the body of Yamunacharya. He noticed that 3 of his fingers were clenched tightly into his hand, and so he asked the close disciples, did he usually hold his hand in this way? And the disciples said, no, actually we've never seen him holding his hand like this. So then at that point Ramanujacharya went into a kind of internal state of meditation, meditating on Yamunacharya's will, and then after some time he proclaimed that I will spread the message of pure devotional service to the supreme form of the personality of Godhead throughout India. And at that time one of Yamunacharya's fingers opened up. And he said, to establish the doctrine of love of God in eternal servitude, I will write a commentary on the Vedanta Sutra called the Sri Bhasya. And at that point the second finger opened up. And then he said, in honor of the great speaker of Vishnu Purana, Parashara Muni, I will call one of my disciples Parashara. And at that point the third finger of Yamunacharya opened up. And all the disciples of Yamunacharya then understood that Ramanujacharya was empowered to understand the heart of his spiritual master, and that he would dedicate his life to fulfilling these 3 missions that Yamunacharya had, that he had not fulfilled in his life. So Ramanujacharya took those as his life and soul. So this pastime illustrates, there's this verse in Bhagavad Gita, Vyavasayatmika bhujiya ekeha kurunandana bahushaka anantasya dayo vyavishanyam. And in the purport, Srila Prabhupada explains that Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur says this verse means that one must take the order of the spiritual master as one's life and soul. So this pastime illustrates that Ramanujacharya understood what his spiritual master wanted, and then he vowed to dedicate his whole life to fulfilling that mission. So then, after that, Ramanujacharya was thinking, well, I never even received some formal kind of initiation from Yamunacharya. So Ramanujacharya was not actually initiated at this time, but he understood the great need he had to have a spiritual master to progress more in his spiritual life. So he had another spiritual master. Ramanujacharya had many different spiritual masters, but one of his close associates was a devotee called Kanchipurna. And so he asked him, he went to him, he said, I never received initiation from Yamunacharya, but I have accepted you also as my spiritual master in my heart, so please will you initiate me? But Kanchipurna became very quiet, and he said, well, I'm a Shudra, I'm not very learned, I'm not qualified to be your spiritual master because you are such a learned scholar and such, you're a Brahmana, so I cannot give you initiation. It's not possible. And when Ramanujacharya heard that, he became very disturbed, and he was thinking, wow, I'm so unqualified and I'm so impure that he will not even give me initiation. Kanchipurna's glance, just if he looks at the dog is liberated, but if he doesn't even want to initiate me, that means I'm even lower than the dog. Ramanujacharya was thinking like that. And he's saying, in order to become qualified to receive initiation from him, I must purify myself. I must purify myself somehow. And so he was wondering how to do that. And he thought, I have to somehow or other take Kanchipurna's remnants from his prasadam. I have to take his remnants. And then, because we have so many examples in the scriptures of the power of the Maha Prasadam, of the devotees. And one of them is Narada Muni. He was explaining to Vedavyasa, just because one time I took the remnants of the Bhaktivedantas that stayed in his home when in his previous birth. Just taking those remnants, I became purified, and that yearning for Krishna consciousness awakened in the heart. And there's another example of Haridas Thakur. At one point, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu really wanted to give Haridas Thakur a benediction, and Haridas Thakur was refusing. The devotees don't want anything from the Lord, but Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was insisting. So Haridas Thakur said, okay, I ask you for only one thing. Let me always take birth in whatever form, whether it's a worm or a dog or an insect, near the house of a devotee, so that I have the supreme benediction of being able to take their remnants. But then Haridas Thakur felt very ashamed and then he condemned himself. He said, how can I ask for something so great? I am so low, but this is such a great thing to ask, something so exalted. So, from a material perspective, then this may seem strange. Why would we want to take the leftovers from someone else's plate? Because due to illusion, we take important things as being very ordinary, and we take ordinary things as being very important. So this is a materialistic understanding of life. We don't give the right importance to the right things. But Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami explains in the Chaitanya Charitamrita that there are 3 substances that have the power to awaken love of God in the heart. And he calls them Mahabala, which means supremely powerful. And these 3 things are the dust from the lotus feet of the Vaishnavas, the water that has washed the feet of the Vaishnavas, and the remnants of the Mahaprasad left on the plates of the Vaishnavas. And Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami explains that by whatever means necessary, we should try to obtain these substances. But we have to understand, like, everything that we do in Krishna consciousness, it's not about the ritual, it's not about the external thing. It's not about the external activity. If we take the remnants of someone, we'll take the dust of someone, but we're not with the right consciousness, we will not get so much benefit. So the important thing is the consciousness that we have when we do this. And so taking the remnants of someone means you're completely humbling yourself before this person, and you show yourself as a completely submitting to that person. So this is the important attitude that one must have. So Ramanujacharya was meditating how he can get the remnants of Kanchipurna to become purified. And this shows this quality that he has so much faith in the devotees, he has so much faith that his spiritual life depends on the mercy of the devotees. And so he devised a plan to get the remnants of Kanchipurna. He invited him for lunch at his home, and so he asked his wife to cook a nice feast. And so his wife was cooking, and just before the time that Kanchipurna was supposed to come, Ramanujacharya went to get him, just out of etiquette, to bring him to his home, to accompany him. But Kanchipurna understood what Ramanujacharya was trying to do, and he didn't want him to get his remnants. So just as Ramanujacharya left, Kanchipurna went another way, and he quickly went to the house where the wife was cooking, and so the wife received him, and he said, "Please wait, my husband is going to come and he wants to take prasad with you." But Kanchipurna said, no, I can't stay, I have to give me prasadam really quickly, I have to leave immediately because I have service to the deity. So the wife of Ramanujacharya gave Kanchipurna his prasadam, and then he quickly took it, and then he threw his plate out, and then he left. And then Ramanujacharya arrived, and he saw his wife cooking again, and he was like, why are you cooking again? Didn't Kanchipurna come? And she said, well, yeah, he already came and he left again. And he said, well, why are you cooking? He said, well, he's a Sudra, I cannot give you the same prasada that he took, because he's a Sudra and you're a Brahmana. So Ramanujacharya was very disappointed, because that was his greatest. He really wanted to get those remnants, but he was not able to. So it increased his desire and increased his faith that he really needed this prasad, because he needed a spiritual master. So he went again to seek Kanchipurna, and he said, without a spiritual master, I don't know what I'm supposed to do, I don't know what I'm supposed to understand. So because you have a very close relationship with the deity, can you please ask the deity what he wants me to know? So Kanchipurna went to ask the deity of Bharadwaj, what would you like Ramanujacharya to know in his life? And so the deity replied, and these are 5 important teachings and then 1 instruction specifically to him. So the first one that the Lord said is, I want him to understand that I am the Supreme Lord, the Absolute Truth, and the source of everything. The second thing, that the Jivatmas are eternally separated parts and parcels, and they are eternally servants of the Lord. 3 is that the only way to achieve spiritual perfection is to surrender to me unconditionally. 4, my love for my devotees is so great that even if a devotee fails to remember me at the time of death, I will bring him to my abode. And 5, when my devotee gives up his body, I take it as my personal responsibility to bring him back to the spiritual world. And then the 6th instruction was, Ramanujacharya, you should take shelter of the great devotee Mahapurna. You should take initiation from him. So, in a different way, Mahapurna got the instruction that he should initiate Ramanujacharya, and Ramanujacharya got the instruction that he should take initiation. So but they were in different places, so they both started walking, and they met just outside of the city, and they met, and Ramanujacharya asked Mahapurna to give him initiation immediately. But Mahapurna said, well, shouldn't we go to the temple maybe, because then it will be very auspicious, the deity is there, and we'll have the blessings of the deity. But Ramanujacharya explained that we don't know when death is going to come. It can happen at any moment, and even if we make plans, death is not going to follow our plans. So better that you initiate me right here and right now. So they did that. And this reveals another quality of Ramanujacharya, and quality of a devotee, is that he doesn't waste any time, because he doesn't expect any extra moment in his life. He knows that I may die at any moment, so every second I must utilize in the service, and I shouldn't wait or put something off that's important, because we don't know when we're going to die. So in this way, Ramanujacharya was officially initiated by Mahapurna, and he was so pleased that he invited Mahapurna to stay in his house for some time. So Mahapurna and his wife went to stay at the house of Ramanujacharya, and they stayed there for some time, for many months. And then one day, when the two men were out, the two wives happened to be at a well at the same time, collecting water for their household duties. And they both had their buckets in the well. And while bringing the bucket out, the wife of Mahapurna splashed some of her water into the pot of Ramanujacharya's wife. And Ramanujacharya's wife became very angry, because she had this conception that this other woman is a Sudra and I'm a Brahmana, so now I'm contaminated by this water. And so she got very angry, and she chastised the wife of Mahapurna, who then became very upset, and so she left. And so the wife went back and explained to Mahapurna what had happened, and Mahapurna said, oh, if we are disturbing, if we're causing inconvenience to this family, then we should leave immediately. So without saying anything, they just left. And then this was Ramanujacharya's spiritual master, and so when Ramanujacharya came back to his home, he saw that they had gone, and so he asked his wife what happened. And so she explained what happened, and Ramanujacharya was so angry that she offended him in such a way that they left, that he also left. And he went to see the deity of Bharadaraj to ask what he should do, because he needed some guidance, he needed some direction. And so after going to the temple, he was going back home, and on his way back home he met a Brahmana who was coming back from his house, who looked very disturbed. And so he asked the Brahmana, did you go to my house to get some alms, to get prasadam? And he said, yes, but your wife shouted at me and kicked me out and didn't give me anything. So at that point, Ramanujacharya understood what the Lord wanted him to do. So he wrote a little letter, and he told the Brahmana, you take this and you give it to my wife. So the Brahmana went back and gave the letter, And then when Ramanujacharya got back to his home, his wife said, "Oh look, I have a letter for you from my father. Let's read it together." And the letter said that my younger daughter is getting married and my wife is struggling making all the preparations, so please send Raksha Kambala, that's the name of the daughter, back so that she can help with the preparations. So Raksha Kambala was very happy and she made her preparations and left, but Ramanujacharya said he couldn't go because he had service. So his wife left, and then Ramanujacharya went back to the deity of Varadaraj and said, "Now I understand what you want me to do, so today I am taking complete shelter of you, I am completely surrendering to you. Today I want to take sannyas so that I can completely dedicate my life to spreading God consciousness." So this example shows this quality that a devotee is always willing to do whatever is best to serve the Lord. And he's not attached to a specific situation that he's in, but he always wants to find out how can I best serve, in what condition can I best serve, and then when he knows that, when he receives the instruction of how he can best serve, then he executes that, not being attached to the circumstances. Okay, so then there's, this is jumping ahead, I don't know exactly when in time this one happens, but when one time Mahaprabhu told Ramanujacharya that you should go to see this other devotee called Goshti Purna, and you should get the mantra from him, and if you receive that mantra from him, you will get the greatest spiritual benefit. So you should go to him, you should render humble service to him, and beg him to give you this mantra. So Ramanujacharya went with two of his many disciples, and it was a long way, they had to walk for a long time. And when they got there, Ramanujacharya asked for the mantra, and Goshti Purna said, "No, I will not give it to you. Let me think about it, go away, and I'll think about it." So again, Ramanujacharya went back and asked again, and Goshti Purna again refused. And they went 18 times, they walked all the way to that village. This shows his determination to get it, because it was the instruction of his spiritual master. And after those 18 times where Goshti Purna refused, Ramanujacharya just sat down and began to cry, and he was thinking, I'm so sinful, so wicked, and so unqualified that even though my spiritual master told me I should get this mantra, I'm too impure to receive it. And so he was crying, and he was thinking, I might as well end my life if I cannot get this mantra. And so other devotees saw this, and they went to tell Goshti Purna. And when he heard this, then he thought, yes, this person is qualified. He also had an exchange with the deity who confirmed that he should do this. So Goshti Purna agreed that, okay, I will give you this mantra, but you should know that this mantra has the power to, whoever hears it or chants it, it has the power to liberate them from all their sins and send them back to the spiritual world. Only Vishnu knows the power of this mantra, and it should only be chanted by someone who has not a single material desire in his heart. So I will give it to you, but you must make this vow that you will never tell anyone else. You keep it for yourself for your whole life. You never tell anyone this mantra. So Ramanujacharya received the mantra, and then he paid his obeisances and he left. But on the way back, he saw so many people suffering, so many people caught up in the materialistic way of life, and out of his natural compassion as a devotee, he couldn't tolerate seeing others suffering. Prabhupada says that devotee is paradukha dukhi, that his happiness is others' happiness is his happiness, and others' distress is his distress. So he couldn't tolerate seeing all these people suffering. So he started calling them. He said, "I have a great treasure. Come to the temple in town and I will give you the treasure." And so he was calling everyone very loudly, and hundreds and thousands of people went. And so he got them all to chant the mantra very loudly, and there was thousands of people chanting. And so Goshtipurna heard from his ashram. He was thinking, this rascal, he promised that he wouldn't tell anyone, and now he's telling thousands of people, and they're all chanting, and there's no discrimination. And so he became very angry. But after this, Ramanujacharya went back to his ashram to see him, and Goshtipurna was so angry, he shouted at him and said, "Get out of my sight, I never want to see you again. You made a vow. You know what an offense it is that you have made, that you made a vow and then you just broke it hours later. Because of this offense, you'll have to go to hell for thousands of years." But Ramanujacharya was not disturbed by this chastisement, and he was very peaceful, and he folded his hands and he said, I beg forgiveness from you for this offense, Guru Maharaj, but you said that anyone who hears or chants this mantra will be liberated from all suffering, and I saw so many people suffering, and I could not tolerate it. I had to give them the shelter of the Lord. So if they all go back to Godhead and they all get the shelter of the Supreme Lord, and I have to go to hell, then what is the loss? Better that one person goes to hell and all these people be liberated. And when Goshtipurna heard the compassion of Ramanujacharya, he began to cry, and all his anger disappeared, and said, "I've never met anyone so loving and so compassionate as you, because you are showing me how to really please the Lord." And he fell at his feet and said, "Please accept me as your disciple." And Ramanujacharya said, No, Guru Maharaj, don't speak like that. Whatever power is coming from the mantra is because I received the mantra from you, so it's only by your mercy. So, this pastime shows many qualities, but one of them is that when we receive the mantra, when we receive knowledge of the Supreme Lord, immediately it should awaken in the heart also some compassion and a desire to give it to others, not to just keep it for ourselves, but to want to give it to others with whatever realization of it we have. And so Ramanujacharya here is showing that at any cost he's willing to show compassion to the living entities. And there's this verse in Srimad Bhagavatam, Narayana parasarvena kutasyana bhivyate svarga pavarga narakeshu api toyartha darshana. And this means that for Narayana parasarve, for a devotee of Lord Narayan, heaven or hell is the same. He doesn't care about the situation he's in. His only desire is to serve at any cost. So this is another quality that Ramanujacharya exemplified throughout his life. This is just one small example of it. I'm going to skip one because we don't have so much time. So then, there are many other things happened in his life, but because it's his disappearance day, we just finish on his pastime of leaving the world. So in his last days, all the disciples of Ramanujacharya were feeling great agony and distress at the thought of separation from their spiritual master. They were thinking that they should end their lives because they cannot live without his presence. But he told them, no, you should not commit suicide. It's sinful to do that. But to reciprocate with their love, he said that I will always be with you through my instructions and through my blessings. And this is a point that Srila Prabhupada also told us, that he said, there is never a moment where I feel separation from my spiritual master because I have his instructions, I'm following his instructions. So in this way we never need to feel separation from our spiritual master, even if physically we may not be close to him. But he also understood that his disciples were very attached to his physical form. So he agreed in Sri Rangam to have a deity of himself made. And so some people made this deity, and then they took it to his birthplace and installed it there. And on the day of the installation, he embraced the deity and breathed his life into the deity. And he's told his disciples that this deity is absolutely non-different from me. I breathe my mercy and my life force into this deity, so you should know that I will always be with you through this deity. So you should worship the deity like you are worshipping me. Then, after that, when he was really just about to leave the world, he begged forgiveness from all the pujaris, because Ramanujacharya, one thing he did in his life was he established strict following of Pancharakshak Vidhi and deity worship in many temples in India. So he begged for forgiveness from all the pujaris, saying that I was maybe sometimes harsh and very strict with you, and I've given you many difficult rules to follow, so please forgive me for that. And then he asked forgiveness from all his disciples and all his godbrothers and all the devotees. With tears and humility, he was begging for forgiveness, because this is the attitude of the devotee. He always feels that he is making mistakes and offences, and he always needs the forgiveness of others. And Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur and Srila Prabhupada also did the same thing before leaving this world. And they begged all their disciples for forgiveness for all the offences that they may have committed. And then Ramanujacharya put his head on the lap of his cousin, who's called Govinda, and then he put his feet on the lap of one of his disciples, a very dear disciple called Andrapurna. And he called all his disciples and all the devotees to come around him and to chant the holy name, to recite his favourite pastimes from the scriptures. And he told, as a last instruction to all his disciples, he said, all of you should serve Lord Ranganath with your life and soul, and live cooperatively with the Vaishnavas. Let that be your happiness. And again, Srila Prabhupada gave us the same instruction, that you can show your love for me by how you cooperate. This was one of his instructions to us. And then after saying that, he asked for the shoes of his Guru Mahapurna to be brought to him, and he fixed his eyes on those shoes, and he fixed his heart on Yamunacharya, his ultimate Guru. And in that way, surrounded by the chanting of the holy names and meditating on his spiritual masters and with the blessings of the devotees around him, he left this world like that. So So there are many qualities, some I spoke about today, but there are so many others, and we shouldn't just think how glorious the Vaishnavas are, but we should know that we also striving to develop these qualities. We should try to develop these qualities in our own life, as well as admire them in the lives of others. But we should take inspiration from them and try to cultivate them in our life. And so Ramanuj Acharya, he is like Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. He gave his teachings through his life, through his behavior, through his life. He gave us the example of what a devotee is. But there's two main teachings that we can finish on, because we know that Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, when he created his movement, he took two main principles from all the sampradayas to base his movement on. And the two that he took from the Sri Sampradaya, which is the one from Ramanuja, is that the first one is the pure devotional service to the Supreme Personality of Godhead is the ultimate goal of life, and the pleasure of the Supreme Lord should be the only goal of our life. It should not be mixed with any other desire. There's this verse in the Nectar Instruction, Anyabilasita Sunyam Gyanakarma Jamavikam. Pure unalloyed devotional service is the goal of life. So even we don't have that desire in our heart, but this is what we should aspire for. And because this is what pleases the Lord. Samsiddhya Haritoshan, and that's the goal of our life, to please Him. And the second instruction that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu took from the life of Ramanujacharya is the ultimate glory of serving and worshipping the Vaishnavas. That being the humble menial servant of the devotees is actually our greatest aspiration, and we should aspire for this, because this in Srimad Bhagavatam is explained Mad Bhaktya Pujabhyadika, that the Lord says that the greatest form of worship is worshipping me, but even greater than that is worshipping my devotees. And we should understand again that when we talk about the devotees, we're not thinking, okay, I will serve a pure devotee when I see one, or only think that these only exist in Srimad Bhagavatam, but we should recognize that actually these Vaishnavas that are being spoken about are the ones that we're living with every day. So it's not some far out thing that we can just imagine, but it's something we should learn to practice every day. How can I become a better servant and well-wisher for the devotees around me? So there we go. Ramanujacharya showed an exemplary life to teach all others what is pure devotional service to the Lord and pure devotional service to the devotees. Okay, I'm going to stop there. Maybe you have some comments or additions or corrections or questions. I don't know if I can answer questions on this topic.
No, just one thing that the line to the Goshti Purnam is more than 100 kilometers. So he went there and back was like 18 times more than.
I have not a question, but I'm making note that 6 questions. First one is I am the absolute truth. Ranganath says, right?
Yeah.
Second one is Jiva is eternal.
Eternal and eternally serving.
Eternally unserving. And third one?
The only way to achieve spiritual perfection is to surrender to the Lord unconditionally.
Fourth one is I'll remember my devotee.
Yeah, even if the devotee fails to remember me, I'll remember him.
And then fifth is I'll take my devotee back to Vaikuntha.
Yeah, I take it. He takes it as his responsibility.
And the last one is taking initiation from Mahapurna.
Yeah.
Thank you. Instructions. The instructions he gives, I don't know if you have note. He asks them to read certain commentaries. I don't know, that's why I'm asking if you have any note.
At the end of his life?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, there is I think 5 or 6 things. He asks them to read and chant every day certain things.
No, I don't know about that. Yes.
I came late to the class, but did you mention about his how his spiritual master really wanted to pose on him?
No, I skipped that one because I didn't have enough time. I wanted to tell that one. Yeah, it's a really nice example also.
Because there's a very nice quote. He defeated the spiritual master several times. The spiritual master's name was Yadava.
Yadava Prakash.
And Yadava, he was a complete personalist, and he used to say that God cannot be here and there at the same time. It's like a cow cannot be with no horns, broken horns, and horns at the same time. So that was the example I was giving. And he was very young when he defeated his spiritual master. And he said, "No, I don't agree with this." He said, "The same way you see a flower, it can have a color, a texture, and a smell, and it's all in one piece. And the same way the sun rays belongs to the sun and it gives heat. And so of course God can be, because Yadava used to say God cannot be in the spiritual world and in the material world. It's two different spaces. So he was giving the example of the broken ones. And then Acharya said, the same way the sun and the rays and the heat, the flower, of course God can also have so many attributes. And then he went on like this all the time, defeating his spiritual master to the point that he organized a plot to kill him. And he organized a plot to kill him in the Ganga River. And he had one brother, Govinda, and Govinda knew about the plot, and then they even made like, they took away Govinda so that he could not inform his Acharya. And then they took him to the river, but somehow the one who was guarding Govinda had to go to the room, and then Govinda escaped. And then Granny went to Acharya and he said, "Please don't go to the Ganga, they're going to put you underwater. All of them are there to put you under the water." And so he said, "Just walk and walk and walk and walk and walk." So he started to walk. He was like very young. And then he got lost because he didn't know where he was going. And there's a couple who came with, and he asked the couple, where's Kanchipuram? And then they say, "Oh, we can take you there, it's not far." And then they walk with him like for days and days and days and days. And then one night he heard them saying near a pond, like they were sleeping, and the wife was saying, "Oh, she was so thirsty." And then the husband said, "Tomorrow morning I'll take you to the pond." And Acharya is just waking up and he hears that tomorrow they will go to the pond to take some water. But then in the morning when he wakes up, the couple is not there anymore. So he walks to the pond and he sees nobody, he sees nothing, and then he sees some people coming and he said, "Excuse me, where's Kanchipuram? I don't know how to go back." And then the villager comes by and said, "Kanchipuram is And actually, at that time, he realized that it was Lakshmi and Narayan who just, making work all the time, that all this with the other Maharaj was like finished, that they didn't want to kill him anymore, so he could come back to the place. Yeah, it's like so adventurous when you read these books. You don't even watch the movies anymore. It's like intrigues and so there's many more stories. Also, when he was one time he was in Jagannath Puri. Remember that story?
No.
He was in Jagannath Puri and he was asking how he should do the puja and how he should do everything. And then actually it says that Lord Jagannath directly instructed him, and then he kicked him. And then he kicked him all the way to Andhra Pradesh. And then that's how he started.
Kurma Chitra.
Huh?
Kurma Chitra.
Kurma Chitra?
Anything else?
Maybe you know more stories. Mitaji? You know more stories?
Je pense à cette histoire de Jagannath. C'est intéressant. Il vient parce que c'est vraiment l'acharya de l'adoration du mystique, quoi. Et il vient à Jagannath Puri et il est perturbé par cette façon dont il adorait le Seigneur suprême. Et il donne quelques conseils, quelques cours. Et puis c'est la nuit, il va se reposer et Jagannath lui apparaît, il est fâché avec lui. Il est vraiment fâché.
Mais parce qu'il ne comprenait pas, c'est ça, il ne comprenait pas.
Parce qu'il y avait pour lui, il y avait la parade. La façon dont c'était fait, c'était trop familier, trop commun. C'était pas assez dans la vénération. Certains principes n'étaient pas souvent exactement communs avec les définitions. Parce que eux sont très stricts, c'est Lakshmi Narayan, ils adorent Lakshmi Narayan. Ponctualité, propreté, c'est très réglé, strict. Alors que Jagannath, voilà. Parfois c'est les gardiens comment on les appelle, ceux qui déplacent spécialement Jagannath.
Les gardes des cochons.
Les gardes des cochons, là c'est des gardiens de cochons. Voilà, c'est pas le même. Mais Jagannath lui dit, moi c'est mes dévots, ils me sont très chers, tu peux pas les critiquer, c'est mes dévots, c'est tout. Quand il s'est réveillé, il était à Kurma-Chitra. Ça s'est produit aussi avec Pundarik Vivendi aussi. Ça s'est produit un peu la même chose, de pire encore. Pundarik Vivendi était avec Mataji, je pense, et avec Jagannath Puri, et ils débattent là, c'est pas mal, mais c'était un jour de festival où ils offraient des vêtements au Seigneur Jagannath. Et il avait remarqué que les vêtements étaient amidonnés. Amidonnés. Et on n'offre pas des vêtements amidonnés. Et il critiquait cette manière. Enfin, voilà, c'est pas ça, c'est pas le standard. Et pareil, la nuit, le Seigneur Jagannath lui apparaît et il le bat. Il lui donne des coups, il le bat. Jagannath le tape. Dans son rêve, il le tape. Et le lendemain matin, quand il se réveille, il lui dit, qu'est-ce qui t'est arrivé? Il était complètement en plein de commotion à cause du Seigneur qui l'avait frappé. Mais il a compris, quoi. Il a réalisé vraiment. Il lui a expliqué. Donc il faut faire attention avec le Seigneur Jagannath. Il a ses dévots et bien que ce soit Dieu la personne suprême, il est très compassionné, il prend le service de tout à chacun, qui qu'il soit.
Shiva Nitacharya ki,
Jai.
Srimad Bhagavatam ki,
Jai.
Prabhupada ki.
Jai.